Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
CBR Street Gang, local wildlife, standing by, over.
Hello. We're going to get the microphone check out of the way here and get started in about a minute. Go ahead and let me know if you can hear me across the various chats and live streams that are going on right now, including the public chats there on YouTube and Twitch. Pretty soon we'll also be streaming to X, but having a little bit of trouble since Streamlabs decided to do an update today, so couldn't quite get that one going before it was time to start here. But yeah, go ahead and let me know if you can hear me across the various chats, and we're going to get started in under a minute. Let's go ahead and get the music under control here. I can see that we have actually quite a few of you across the various public streams and the streams that are going on outside of the public realm here. Saying that the microphone is not loud enough here. We're going to wait for just a minute here. I want the public streams to catch up. You guys over there that can hear me basically in real time, you can hear me now? Cool. Let's go ahead and see on the public side. Yep, looks like you guys can also hear me. Yeah, they did an update for Streamlabs, and it kind of threw off the whole setup. I literally had to rebuild the setup, the streaming setup, in between when I posted that we were going to be going live at 10:30 Pacific, 6:30 UTC. So I was kind of rushing to get this back up. Audio might be a little out of whack for today, but that'll be fixed by Monday's live stream and in the Bitcoin in 60 seconds videos as well, as that is not affected. So we will get rolling here. Let's go ahead and transition into, well, a Friday Bitcoin analysis, a live stream, as the title says, and I struggle to spit out. Hello and welcome to Landy's Crypto Corner. It's a Friday Bitcoin live stream, or Bitcoin analysis live stream here on Landy's Crypto Corner. I'm your host, Landy. Today is December 15th, 2023. And, well, Bitcoin's doing, kind of what we expected based on the analysis last stream. We can see that Bitcoin is currently hanging out in our weekly zone here between $41,800 to $42,000, depending on your exchange here. And to the upside, that 43,200 to the upper first, which is now coming in around 43,500 to 6, depending on your exchange as well. So Bitcoin hasn't really done too much. It did hit our upside targets that we were looking for over here, ran the upper first, and is kind of settling in around the weekly for now. Now, coming into a weekend, I wouldn't, I would not generally expect a larger move, but we have seen a lot of front running going on the weekends lately. So we might see some setups develop over the weekend, and we're going to review kind of what to look for regarding those setups if we do start to see them occur this weekend. Now, in this case, as long as Bitcoin is trading above the basis band of the Bollinger Bands, which again will move up at close today because this is the daily, then I would be, generally upside biased to keep testing the weeklies to upper first. If we do see a move above the upper first here at 43,500 to 6, I'm looking for those highs somewhere around 44,000 to 44,500, and possibly the wick high at 45. If we do see a breakout above there, of course, we're looking to that monthly up there at 45,500 to the upper second, which is right around $46,000. Any trading above there, and I'm going to look right to that monthly at 47, and possibly the monthly swing high above it at 48,2 to 5. So that has not changed, but that will all be contingent on that upper first standard deviation being closed above on the daily, and this will continue to move up as long as Bitcoin is above the basis band here. So I would keep an eye on that. It might even be around the 43.8 region, or almost around this close open structure at 44. It's kind of coming in at 44.2, so I would give it a range between 43.8 and 44.2 for the upper first to move up to, provided Bitcoin closes this daily above the basis band. And if it doesn't move up there immediately, I would look for it up there around the close open highs within the next couple of closures, provided Bitcoin maintains the weekly and basis band here. We're likely to see the basis band start creeping up into this weekly. If Bitcoin continues to go sideways, we could see a close open below it, which will, if Bitcoin doesn't already come down to close below it, will bring into focus these downside targets here at the weekly at 39K to that monthly by the daily lower first at 38.5. Now, if that is lost, I'm looking right back to this weekly here at 37.7. and that would open up the next weekly below it at 36.2 to 3, where the lower second standard deviation on the daily is starting to come in. I wouldn't really want to see that area break down for long-term upside, or short-term upside rather. I would be looking at that as, indicative of some sort of reaccumulation, and we come back to it later. There could be, any kind of consolidation that happens around this area. We have to be aware of both reaccumulation and redistribution. I'm leaning more towards a reaccumulation if we were to see something back down here. But for the integrity of the current move, to go run the upper areas here at these two monthlies, the 45.5, 47, and possibly the wick high up there at 48.240, I would want to see Bitcoin remaining at minimum above this weekly, monthly area at 39,000 to that 38,500. It can swing below and even tap on this upper weekly at 37.7, but I'd really want to see closures coming in above this daily upper first to preserve the opportunity for Bitcoin to keep testing these weeklies and then possibly the monthlies up there. So be aware of that coming into the weekend, and something to watch, of course, as the weeklies as the weekly close is coming in. Let's go ahead and flip over to our non-Bitcoin in 60 seconds chart. Most of what I just spoke about there has been explained in the Bitcoin in 60 seconds videos. Of course, that is the shorts series here on YouTube and also on x.com, where you can find me at CryptoLandy. And in this case, I am looking for possibly further downside should we, see this basis dropped, and of course this low dropped, as I mentioned in the Bitcoin in 60 seconds videos. This low is at 40,150. You can just call it $40,000. If we do start to see that, swing area break down, then I'm looking somewhere around that lower first, 2 weekly area. And the lower first, of course, is coming in at 38,600. If we did see Bitcoin drop the basis, we're likely to see that lower first, maybe come up a little bit, but then spike down into that monthly there at 38.5. But it does, come into a confluent area that we've already previously identified. Now, if we do throw on a swing chart, we are in a downtrend here. And this is not a confirmed high locally. If we do see this local wick high that dropped on a close, that would be a warning signal. And I would call that below 41.4. Bitcoin is likely to see the basis somewhere around there, as the basis is currently at 41,000. It's likely to be around this doji wick low from yesterday. If that area is breached on a close, that would also be a breach of this close open around 41.5, so below 41.4 to 5. We're going to start seeing a swing high painted here. We already have a lower swing high and a lower swing low on the wicks. So I wouldn't necessarily call this a 3-candle high or lower high on a close. So it is a little bit ambiguous and more indicative of a consolidation type of a look as it stands right now. But on the swing chart, it is a lower high and a lower low trend break from this higher low right here that was set at that wick at 42,850 or so. Now you can see that Bitcoin has bearishly retested that, pulled back from it. So if it does put in a high here, then naturally we're looking down to a base of support somewhere around that 39 to 38.5, maybe even below. You can start looking at dailies down here, in the 37.7 area where that weekly is. So that would be my first big area of interest to the downside. And of course, to the upside, we're looking locally at those closes up here at around 40,000 to 44,000 to 44.5, and possibly that wick high at 45. Then we can start to look up to the monthlies if we do see this area starting to be regained and it's specifically closed above. Then I would be looking to that 45.5 to 46K at the upper second, 47 to 48 to 40 to 48.5 or so. I would give it some room if you do see things up there. So, and well, it might be crap audio on your end, Mr. Jedi, but I gotta hear, I can't hear it. So if you do, if anyone else in the chats there can let me know if it's like really bad, then we can see if we can do something about it. But for right now, we'll just continue on with the analysis and try to fix it maybe later here. Let's see. We'll just look real quick here. Yeah, nothing's changed on my mixer side of things, so it would have to be the streaming side of things, which I, to be fair, have had some trouble with lately. All right, so also you mentioned that your laptop was somehow had water damage or something along those lines. I don't really know if that would be something that I could help you with. In any case, let's go ahead and look at the momentum pivot for the daily here. We can see that it is at $44,000, and we can see that, you know, this has pretty much played out the bearish divergences from an initial standpoint up here. And we've had hidden bullish divergence on the other side of that. Now, we could still see hidden bullish divergences populate from this consolidation down here. What I would tell you is, you know, if we do see RSI break below the most recent level at around that 57 read, which it's, to be fair, pretty close to, we're probably going to start seeing this area become a swing high. And that's where we're going to start looking to some of those lower levels. Now, we can get a little bit of a bias here on some price levels that are confluent with our support and resistance and Bollinger Band levels by looking at this particular RSI. This is a Wilder's RSI that just has some, you know, current levels of interest in terms of the specific areas on RSI. So the 50 read is at 40,300, which is the first the first swing low over here, I believe, that happened in the lower term time frames was a 40,300 read, and then it went and swept 40,150. I would call it just $40,000 to be quite honest with you. We can also see that the bearish control zone is at 36,360. I would expect that to keep moving up close over close. So I would start to look at this as being somewhere around the $37,000 area pretty soon, provided Bitcoin holds up around the current weeklies that it's trading at, 41.8 to 43.2. But to be fair, that bearish control zone read coming in at 36.3 is this weekly area, weekly zone that I just talked about down here around this weekly at 36.2 to 3, where the lower second on the daily is coming in. So that would be, you know, a nice bouncy area. And we have quite a few drives of bearish divergence. So this thing cooling down a little bit is not out of the question, and certainly something that I would actually like to see for the, you know, sustainability of longer term moves to the upside. The longer this can consolidate at a high level above some of these major supports, in particular above the monthlies and weekly down here at $35,000 to the weekly just below at 34,750, kind of the base of this resistance that was breached and then held up as support. You know, not just, you know, it was tested quite a bit down there at that 34,750 to $35,000 at the monthly. You know, it breached through it, held it as support on a close, nice wicks below, and then a move up to these weeklies here at the 36,200 to 300 to 30 to 37.7, and then it came right back down and found support again in that area. So, you know, as long as Bitcoin is hanging out above this monthly at $35,000 to that 34,750, you know, I'd be looking at this as generally strong, and I would like to see some more consolidation above here, maybe even some retests of some of these lower levels that we just talked about on the daily, as that would be good for the longer term impulsive price structure, and that would, you know, probably beget some very high prices later on, especially coming into you know, the halving and after, of course, and any kind of spot ETF stuff. Now, if we do start seeing the daily close back above 44, you know, game on to the upside, to be fair. This is going to come down next closure as well, as Bitcoin is falling. It's likely to be somewhere in the upper 43s, maybe mid 43s. I would suggest that you check on this over the weekend as it updates, especially if Bitcoin continues to go sideways at these weeklies here. So that is going to be, if you want to get this indicator, it's just the indicators tab and search for reverse Stoke panel. And it's a regular Stoke. It is not a Stoke RSI. So I would be, keeping that on my chart just to see where the pivots are for momentum. We do know that obviously closes are, were lower. We did have 3 up candles, and then following this with a likely down candle today, unless we do see this start to trade back above the $43,000 level. So be aware of that. The 2-day is also painting a bit of a setup here as well. Now, this is something to be aware of on the 2-day. This isn't going to close until Saturday evening's candle into Sunday, into the weekly close. But if we do see the upper first standard deviation dropped, that would give us the indication that things are likely to test around the basis band, and that is currently coming in around that weekly at $39,000. It is at $39,200 currently. It could even test a little bit lower into those close open structures. Of course, that's coming in at the weekly at 37.7. So we are getting a lot of confluent areas there. Now, the lower first is above this last swing low area, and that is a good thing for the bulls. That is, of course, coming in at the weekly below the 37.7 weekly at 36.2 to 3. So we're getting a lot of confluences across the board, including where the upper second is right around the highs at $45,000. So if we did see the upper first hold up and or get lost and then regained, and the upper first is currently at 42,100 or so, then I would, still be biased towards a move to test that upper second and possibly above it. That's where we would see some of those deeper targets at the monthlies. So we're getting a lot of very good confluent areas. We even see the lower second is now, basically at the basing structure of this breakout, which occurred over here on the 2-day with the breakout above $33,000 and the high put in right at the monthly at $35,000. So having the lower second coming into some key areas of support and resistance is a very good thing. It's not quite there yet, but it is showing from a band position, it is showing strength still. Now we'll come back to it if we do see compression, and then we'll evaluate what the most likely outcome would be based on what we're seeing. And there is no real big bearish divergences here on the 2-day. So this also kind of leads me to believe that we are going to see, either things hold up and try up further, or we're in for a bit of consolidation with some, sideways and downside price action here. We just had the 3-day open up here. The upper first is coming in at 41,250. So right around, it's right around the current wick lows. Again, a high is not yet actually technically in. There is a swing high to, what could become a swing low here. If Bitcoin can trade above, what's the 3-day here, 43,500 or so, then we'd be looking generally from the 3-day chart up to the highs again at $45,000 by the upper second. Of course, we are seeing Bollinger Band compression here. We are seeing consolidation above the upper first standard deviation between the upper first and second. This is strength. So if this area is dropped, though, I would be looking for mean reversion somewhere around the basis. Again, that's coming in at 37,500, likely to move up to 37.7. This will be closing with the weekly candle. So, be aware of that coming into the weekly close. And we're going to get to the weekly in just a moment, but we do want to check on momentum on the 3-day. That is currently at 44,600. So right there at the highs, a little bit higher than the closes as well. The 4-day is also twisted down. 44,315 is going to be the momentum pivot. Not really concerned about that. We don't really see too many drives. We don't have any local drives on this move of bearish divergence. So we saw some of it on the consolidation, but this is just, this is only now just putting in a high. So no bearish divergences on this move. That would lead me to believe, things are going to keep looking, generally sideways and up. We do see that BBWP has cooled down. So any kind of spikes to the upside here, in this case to the $46,000 area by the daily upper second, we've got $46,000 in the 4-day upper second. As long as Bitcoin is trading and closing 4-day candles above the upper first, meaning it's not dropping this 40,150 low or $40,000 even, depending on your exchange, then I would be looking at that upper second on the 4-day as being a viable target. Still, if we do see a 4-day closure below the upper first at 40,800 to 900 area, then I would be looking for, in general, I would be looking for a move back to wherever the basis comes in. This is currently kind of skating along the bottom side of this swing low over here at 34,750. In between there and the close at 36,160 is coming in at 35,450. So about $500 above that monthly support level or SR flip. So looks pretty good still. Again, showing strength, trading above that upper first and in between the upper first and upper second area now. I would like to actually see a cool down that maintains, the upper first, maybe a quick dip down to the basis once it gets closer to price action on the 4-day. And then we're likely to see a quick compression to re-expansion. If that does occur, 5-day, same kind of thing. Although the 5-day is pivoted at 41,800 right now. And that is currently an area that we are trading above. So if it is lost, we are likely to see, continued downside pressure on the 5-day. We are seeing a bit of mean reversion in play here in terms of price volatility for BBWP, but being above the upper first here, it's still with the residual expansion on the 5-day is going to have this upper second continuing to move up as long as Bitcoin is trading above the upper first and the basis band here. Now, if it does, head down towards that upper first, it is in a confluent area again, right around $39,000, which is a weekly level, a very important one at that. If that is dropped, I would still look locally at structure, the $35,000 area, especially if it starts to come down longer term on the 5-day. But the basis is quickly moving up, and that is at $33,000. Very, very nice. And we can see that the lower first is above the prior low. We did point this out previously, that 26,500 low. You always want to see that lower first really start to get above it. That is going to give you the bias on retest to the downside being, in terms of momentum, you're likely to, when bands are expanded, you're likely to run, on a crash scenario in this case, you would likely see things spike down into some of those lower band levels, but it's more likely from a volatility perspective that will be picked up. Same goes for the upside. If things are expanding to the downside, the upside bands become your areas of resistance. The downside bands in this case become your areas of support, and you want to see them above prior lows, in this case, above this last swing low at 26,500. So this is, technically, from a technical point of view, Bitcoin is very, very strong above 26,500, and very, any kind of sharp moves to the downside would still be very bullish until we saw something different, right? So we saw, either a lower high and then a lower, a higher low above there rather. So let's say we get a high here, comes down to the basis, makes a higher low, moves up, and then it's a lower high that then comes down and takes out this, a higher low. And just to kind of illustrate that, because this can be a little bit difficult for some of you that might be a little bit newer, that would look something like this. It doesn't even matter where the next high comes in. It's more about wherever this low comes in. But for the sake of argument, we'll say, maybe it's a lower high and then the lower low is breached. That's where things become a little bit more dangerous, because then you have a lower high and then you have a trend break of the most recent low. That's where trend, because trend is your first thing you look at, support and resistance second, volatility third. They're all kind of equal, trend, support, and resistance, and volatility, and that creates your momentum. In that case, it would have plenty of downside momentum to test much lower. In this case, there's no danger right now. This is looking still very, very strong. And it's highly unlikely that even if we see a very large move to the downside, that this is going to turn bearish for an extended period of time until we saw a scenario much as I have just explained. Now, this is, very much from the 5-day perspective, what I'd be looking for, here on the daily is kind of already represented. We have the higher low, lower high, lower low. Down we have a trend change. So it's either going to go into consolidation or it's going to get continuation. In this case, as long as it's above the basis, it's above this consolidation area where the lower first is, I'm still looking for strength in Bitcoin, basically. And that is what we're seeing. Let's go ahead and look at that weekly. Weekly is still very, very strong. We're still getting expansion of BBWP. You can see that down here with the BBWP over the moving average. That is why it's green. If BBWP was under the moving average, that little box would be red, indicating that there is a chance for mean reversion here. And again, I've explained this every single time, but I want everyone to really, really understand this, lock this in. Bitcoin's BBWP for price volatility as it relates to the Bollinger Bands, what we're looking at is the possibility that we could see BBWP cross under the moving average, either by going sideways and the moving average continuing up, or it moves underneath the moving average. But it's not until we see a close over close where we see the BBWP under the moving average and the moving average get a negative slope that we are biased towards compression. Now, that does not rule out that things don't continue to test, of course, if it's above the basis band, the upside bands in this case. It's just that we'd be more biased towards a compression. In this case, above the basis band, we'd be looking for upwards and sideways compression, or the compression to happen, somewhere locally above these support areas or prior resistance areas in this case. So I would be expecting, those to converge pretty soon, BBWP and the moving average. They're very close right now, 72 over 69. Nice. But I would not be looking for this to enter mean reversion territory or compression territory until we see both the moving average, both the BBWP under the moving average and the moving average with the negative slope. In this case, if it is compressing while it is above or cooling down in terms of price volatility above the upper first here at 37.7, basically it's 37.6. This is going to move up to 37.7 to 38.5 at the monthly pretty soon. So upper first is going to be your volatility trend kind of breaker. If we were to see it breach to the downside, then we're looking for things to really quickly cool down back to the basis, which is currently coming in at 31.8, which is also the big monthly, weekly, daily area. For those that have seen the Bitcoin in 60 seconds chart, this was the big breakdown that kind of solidified the bear market, and that was the daily, weekly, and monthly closures that all broke down, and that came in at that 31.8 area. We are now seeing that the basis band, of course, on the weekly is right there. It is going to continue up somewhere around that daily that you see me point, or you probably saw me. I haven't pointed at it in a while, but this daily down here at 32.4. So, we're seeing the weekly really coming into an area where it's going to be looking more and more bullish if things did come down and retest. Meanwhile, bears will be screaming their heads off about we're right, everything's going to dump, it's 2019 all over again, which you never know. Could be. I wouldn't mind seeing another 2019 kind of weekly downtrend form, but there is no downtrend here on the weekly. This is all uptrend as it currently stands right now, and this is a fresh weekly break. So any kind of mean reversion back to these highs here in any manner is bullish until proven otherwise, right? That's either by putting in lower highs or breaching the most recent lows on a swing basis, and especially on this low down here at 24,900, 24,750 area. And that's not what we're looking at. So there's nothing bearish about this structure as it stands right now. A nice little cool down is actually preferred, as I said earlier in the stream. That's what I would be looking for. As long as Bitcoin is trading above the upper first, this is going to remain heavily bullish to keep testing around that upper second week after week, which continues to move up. And currently the upper second is at 43,500. So that is another number, of course, to pay attention to, as we just mentioned it earlier. Above 43,500, that's the daily upper first standard deviation on the volatility bands, or the Bollinger Bands in this case, or if you want to call it like a volatility level, it would be the first standard deviation on the daily. That is this guy right here. So above 43,500 on the weekly, that's above the upper second. That would also be above the upper first on the daily. That's really where you would start to look at the weekly, is like, okay, if we close up there, you know, above the upper second, we're looking at continuation to the highs and higher. And that's where you start looking at these areas over here. You take the wicks on the weekly if you want, but it's more about that monthly at 45.5, the monthly above it at $47,000, and then the swing high up there at 48,240. If this area is dropped at the upper first at that 37.7, that's where we're starting to look at the weekly as being, you know, viable to come and back test some of these highs over time, but more than likely, you know, the shorter term time frame areas that we've already talked about, you know, get below that daily lower first. Then we got that 37.7 is kind of the key area to watch to the downside. As it stands right now, everything's pretty darn bullish still above there. All right. Ooh, that was a lot. Do we have any other bigger closures this week? We do have the 2 week. Closing above $40,000 basically. Well, actually, it's got way more room on the 2 week. The upper second standard deviation, and by the way, the 2 week is only just beginning to get expansion, so this is heavily biased to the upside. The 2 week upper second standard deviation, which would indicate continuation if we do see a closure above here on the 2 week chart, and that's at 39,350 or so. So that would be an area to keep an eye on. If we're closing above there in the weekly, that means that we're going to be closing above there on this 2 week chart, indicating that we'll get further Bollinger Band expansion to the upside, price volatility taken off to the upside, and the bias would be this area over here at that 45 to 47 on a close, 48,240 on a high. If this area is lost, the upper first is directly below at 34,740. So, you know, it is right there at another weekly area. Go figure. Everything, you know, it's just around that monthly weekly area at 35 to 34,750. That's where the upper first is now. Closing above that upper second would imply from the 2 week chart continuation to the upside. If we do see the next 2 week candle close under there, or this 2 week candle close under there, then we're biased to go look towards that upper first standard deviation as it begins to line up with the key areas of support and resistance. And right now it's at a key area at that $35,000 monthly to 34,750 weekly. So pretty cool how that's all coming together. We've got the 3 week, which, you know, we'll be visiting more next week, but you know, the upper second is right around where Bitcoin is currently trading, and that is at 40,800. So closures above there, again, indicating that that 45 to 48,240 area is likely to be tested. Below there, though, the upper first is fair game. That's coming in at 34,125. That is going to move up, of course, the end of next week's weekly candle. And of course, we've got the 4 week is going to be coming in at the end of the month here. So, and that upper second is there at 39,500. So again, it's above some of the SR levels that we've talked about. If it is lost, then we'd be looking for the next 4 week candle to possibly test wherever the upper first would be coming in. Currently, that is at $33,000, so 32,952. So that is kind of the long-term outlook. And just as a reminder, where the monthly upper second is, that is going to be 39,680. So basically closing above $40,000 is going to indicate continuation on the monthly, at least to the local wick highs or swing around the highs and higher. Below there, then we're looking somewhere around that upper first. And where that ends up currently, it is at $33,000. I would expect this to end up somewhere around, you know, this close open at $35,000, which also is this monthly close open over here, and this close open and wick high from October. All right. That's Bitcoin. You know, we are going to take a look at Dixie. We are going to take a look at, we'll take a look at Dixie. So I'm getting some questions over here in the other chat. We're going to take a look at Dixie. We'll take a look at gold. We'll also take a look at traditional markets, which Dow is continuing to make a new highs here, and then Nasdaq and SPY catching up and testing in and around their local resistances right up near the all-time highs. But I do want to take a break and just read the chats. I want to make sure microphone, everything else sounds good because we were having some issues with that earlier. Let me go ahead and look over here. So you guys say it's okay over there? You guys can hear me in real time. So you saying it sounds good? Okay. Let me go ahead and look at the public chats just to make sure. We've got a few in Twitch. If you are on Twitch, I'm having trouble with the chat there, the little plugin for Streamlabs. If you can jump over to the YouTube live stream that is at Landy's Crypto Corner, there's also a link in Twitch to my YouTube channel as well. Go ahead and chat in here with the guys. You do have to sub, of course, but if you're already subbed to me on Twitch, go ahead and sub to me on YouTube, and you'll be able to chat. The only reason I have sub chat turned on is because of bots and stuff like that. Let's look here. Spin, hello. Jedi, hello. No name, hello. Roka, hello. I got quite a few people hanging out in the YouTube chat. If you'd like to jump in, go ahead and subscribe. You can jump into the chat down below and let me know if the microphone's sounding okay. Jedi's off on a good one here. I have no idea what he's talking about. I don't have time to read this. Okay, it says he's paying attention again. Something. It was his headset though for the. Okay, yeah, it was his headset for some of the audio issues that he was experiencing. So it does seem as though that problem has resolved. It may have been a bitrate issue. I did up the bitrate after looking at the chat earlier. So let's see how this will turn out for the rest of the day. All right, let's go ahead and move on into Dixie. We do see that Dixie has tested the lows and lower on the daily here. So we had the low coming in at the previous low at 102.5, basically 102.46. We did see that dropped, and we did hit our downside target at the 102 area and even slightly below. We'd mentioned that it might even swing this swing low over here, and it did, and that's upper 101 region to 102. And this is expansion to the downside. So coming off the back of what the Fed meeting was, just kind of gave the bias that the dollar was going to continue its downtrend. I'm still hesitant when looking at like the quarterly and stuff longer term, but we'll check that stuff out later in the month coming into the quarterly close, yearly close, 6-month close, all that. In this case, it is biased to the downside. We did mention that if it was going to fail around here, it's likely, that it would turn momentum to the downside. It did. It's got confirmed expansion. It's closing. It closed below the lower second. Now it is trying to pop back up. This would be considered bearish on any closes below the lower first two basis. So the basis is coming in at 103.41. The lower first is 102.86. So it did test, drop the wick low. That's kind of what we were looking for. That was one of the conditions, is drop that area, and we're going to head down, at minimum 102 as like the main target, and then the next swing low over here, which is slightly below there in the upper 101 region. If it does continue down, I would be biased to test back into that 101, upper 101 area, even down to 101.60, 5. If it does drop that area, right where this tagged, there was a couple of lows, kind of a zone of swings down here as well. So there's 2 swings here, 3, and I would be careful here. There is a bunch more swings just below it, the 101.5 region, which is kind of the bias towards the next downside target, to possibly 101.50. So it kind of got a dollar zone there. So 101.5 to 150 cents. So that's kind of what it's looking like right now, and kind of what we are looking at rather. Today is going to be continuation down to the lower second. So this is actually, 102.32 on the 2-day chart here. And this is going to close today. If it closes above there, it's currently trading above there by about 30 cents. This is where we saw expansion to the downside, lower highs, lower low and a retest of that lower second. One of my favorite setups is that move back to the lower second that then bounces. So I would be aware of bounces from the 2-day chart, even though the daily looks, it could try to, it looks bad on the daily. It looks like it's going to continue down, test those 101 and a half, maybe lower to 150 cents. And it's fresh expansion, to be fair. But if it holds this area and starts to put in like a 3-candle structure or 3-candle low coming into next week, I would start to look at that 2-day as being, an area that we could see this bottom and or not necessarily bottom, but at least get a nice bounce. And then we come back to it, see if it's just consolidating back around that 104 to 105 region or something like that, where the basis is coming in. That is now at 104.50. So still resistance. We see the upper first would be resistance. So this would be resistance right up to, that high there where the upper first is coming in at 105.80. And until we saw a breach of that 106 region on a close, that swing high there on the 2-day chart, this is bearish. So I would be looking for continuation. If we look at the weekly, it is, it was a retest of that lower second standard deviation. And this is another thing that I would say on compression like this, unless it dumps out below the lower second on the weekly, I would be very, very cautious when looking at Dixie that this could bounce pretty aggressively and it wouldn't have far to go to take out this swing high. Now, I wouldn't, be calling this this was a low, actually a 3-candle low on a close, but because it didn't pass the 104.21, it was more biased to test the downside. Should it start dropping local structure? That's what it did, drop the lower first at 103.23. But we're seeing compression. We might see bands flatten out. And until we saw a closure on the weekly below the lower second standard deviation at 101.84, then I'd be looking, for this to bounce. If we do see closures below there, then I'd be looking for the lows again, somewhere around the 100 area to 150 cents, and then possibly a retest of these lower lows down there in the 99 cent to 99.5 cent region. If we start seeing this close back above 104, I would say caution. Eyes on this thing could start to pop back up, take out the swing high on a weekly close. I would still be very, very cautious around this price action on Dixie. Yes, we are seeing, confirmed expansion to the downside, especially closing below the lower first, but we're likely to see the bands flatten out, maybe give an opportunity to keep running these lows, but I would exercise caution. I wouldn't be as bearish as many of these people in the Forex markets and a lot of these macro experts, the same ones that were saying that traditional markets would never make new all-time highs until we saw the lows and possibly even dump off 2020 lows tested. Well, those are the same people that are looking for Dixie now to break down below its lows and race to like crazy downside targets. And I don't know where these people get their ideas from. I'm not looking for Dixie to head to 80 cents immediately, or 80 cents, $80 immediately. If it headed to 80 cents, be thankful we talked about Bitcoin. But, it is possibly a Head and Shoulders and like all that different stuff, but we have to take it one step at a time. So keep that in mind. When looking at gold, we can see that gold also hit our upside target area. Let's go ahead and actually look at gold. Now the daily is, still in a bit of a dicey area. Did run this most recent high at 2040, and it did come into our weekly zone here. On the daily, it did close slightly above and swing above there to around that 2,050 bucks, coming in at a high of 2,047.91. So we did get that nice bounce off the lower first. We need to see that basis hold right where this 2016 weekly level is. If we do see this hold up, then I would be looking at a bit of a range here. So we'd have a really easy one If the upper first is closed above, then that would make the highs available. The most recent high there at $2,050 to the upper second, coming in at $2,064 to $65, and possibly this close open at $2,070. Now, if the basis and 2016, 15, 16 is lost, and this swing low over here at 2009, you could even look at the daily. You could see below there's kind of a range between 2005 and 2009. Then I'd be looking for the lower first somewhere around 1990 to that $2,000 wick high. This is actually 1996, so somewhere around 1990 to 1995 or so. Below there, we're looking right back to this support zone down here where the daily lower first is coming in. An area that definitely needs to hold up, that 1980 to around 1970, 1965, if you want to take the swing. That is really, really going to be an important area to keep an eye on. $2,011 is the close that's needed to turn momentum back up on the daily. So again, what we want to see is we want to see this basis hold up to the lower first, and then momentum shift, start taking out the highs here. So back above $2,034, $35, which is right where today's candle opened, which is a weekly level. Then we can start keeping an eye on that upper first around 2040 to the most recent high. Again, the upper first coming in right here at this prior swing, which was a lower high. So we had a little bit of a short-term downtrend and a bit of a trend break on a close and a wick high. So I'm looking for higher lows until proven otherwise by taking out this most recent lower low at 1973. In this case, I would be looking for it to head back up, especially if we see a momentum shift on the daily. We could be looking at 2100 gold and maybe even higher again to try and fill out that wick high, but I would need to see some consolidation and some concerted strength above this 2081 and 2070 region to really be looking at this high and higher as viable, sustainable targets and not just runs that turn into wicks. Weekly, closing above the upper first preserves these highs as the likely area of interest, and the upper first is at 2005. So that's confluent with one of our, daily target areas, 2005 to 2009, if you like. So weekly will be downside bias below $2,050, but if it starts trading back up there, this will come down at close. We'll take a look at it on Monday, see what it updates to, but it's likely to be local, which means that we could see a nice bullish reset on the weekly, which would look really good. Again, same with BBWP. This is upside expansion until proven otherwise, as long as it's above the basis, and the basis is all the way down there at 1950. So looks very good. Still looks strong. Still looks like it wants to run those highs. But if we do start seeing like 1970 to 80 dropped, and specifically 1965, that swing low, then that is an issue for gold. We got some higher highs, slightly higher highs on a wick. On Dow here coming in at 37,295. Looks good. And I will tell you that I would want to see a little bit of consolidation above the all-time high breakout here, and that would be expected, or even a nice pullback here. 37,171 is the daily pivot. It's going to be right on top of price action. We do see expansion confirmed here, so as long as it is now above the upper first, it's looking to run the highs and higher or consolidate up here. And the upper first is currently at 36,663. And below there, we can see the basis is now coming into this little short-term consolidation low area at 36,000. So above 36,000 to around the highs here at 250 to 300. Looks good to keep testing the highs and highers and keep marching on. If we did see the basis drop, then we're looking somewhere around this prior consolidation, somewhere around 35.5. Just take it kind of 500 points at a time there, as the bands will likely be in all of those key areas. The weekly still looking very, very good. A close above the upper second is going to indicate a lot of strength coming into the end of the year here. Doesn't mean that things can't pull back in the meantime, but this is, 80 over 60 on BBWP, closing above the upper second. This is continuation. We're looking at 36, 814, 815. It's going to close above there today, most likely, unless it dumps out in the next little while here. I'd just be looking for continuation to keep testing higher. Maybe we get a $38,000 strike on coming up here pretty soon before the end of the year on Dow. Not a guarantee, but it is looking to head that way at minimum. And anything above 35,700, the upper first here, is going to maintain that outlook for me at least. But I would want to see a higher low come in on the weeklies, and that is going to mean that there's weekly downside. So multiple weeks of downside in terms of price action and volatility on the daily mean reversion, probably even expansion to the downside. When that begins to occur, we're going to be investigating that closely, as this was an extended move off the lows. We do want to see a higher low put in, even if it's just a swing high to a swing higher low on the weekly for maintained structure to the upside. So let's go ahead and look at NASDAQ. NASDAQ's looking the same way on the weekly. Close above the upper second here at 16,432. We're likely to see this, head towards its all-time high there at 16,764 to 16,800 and higher. I would be looking at the next big areas being the upper third area here on the weekly. We're probably going to get a replace, meaning that the upper third is going to keep expanding. We are going to get a replace, and eventually we'll see the upper second there, and or price get there first to around that 17,000. That is the next big area to be looking out for. Whole numbers are kind of the name of the game when you see, blue sky breakouts. We are not there yet. We need to see the breakout above the all-time high, but the daily is giving us the edge that this is in expansion mode. It's going to remain above the upper second standard deviation, likely by close today, and that's coming in at 16,555. This is going to keep chasing. As long as it's above the upper first to the basis, it's looking great. And that's coming in at 16,300 to around 16,000. I would say, even a dip below down to 16,000 is fine. You do kind of want to see it staying above 16,100, but even if it did come back to the basis, as long as it, bounces off that area, it's looking good. Down to the lower first is actually even pretty good. But this is fresh expansion. That's not the first thing I'm looking for. I'm looking for this to continue up when we see expansion like this. Maybe a move back to the upper first, and start doing what we've seen prior for Bitcoin and gold and all that kind of stuff, consolidating between the upper first and upper second, really showing strength. And the weekly is indicating that is what we are seeing. We're seeing a nice big expansion. Really beautiful. This is textbook. You want to see this expansive move up, nice pullback to supports, bounce off the lower second and third on compression, and then just run the other way and initiate the expansion and confirm it. Close over close. We're already seeing that 16,218 is going to keep the momentum pivot to the upside, but it's more about this right here. BBWP expansion indicating that we are going to go test the all-time high and higher. Not a guarantee, but as long as it's trading above the weekly upper first, it's fine. That's at 15,850, likely to be somewhere around 15,900 to $16,000. So above there, I'd be looking for all-time high before looking anywhere else. We did see our 1970 target hit, and it did get slightly above here on SPY, and that's at 1973. Cool. So we kind of had a zone here coming into that all-time high, 1970 to 1975. 76 area. Above there, we're looking for 19. I said 19. That would be 469, 470 area where the upper second is. Currently trading at 469. If it can trade and close above this weekly here at 469.24 to 25, we're looking at that 470 to 476, 475 area. And then above there, the all-time high at 479 to 480. I would be eventually looking to 500 points, come back to it later. Especially if this can close above the upper second standard deviation. It's not as quite quite as nice of a compression to re-expansion, but we would be looking for this to slowly work its way up to the all-time high and higher. From the weekly perspective, momentum remains to the upside above 450 coming into close this week, so that is going to chase pretty close to price here, but it's more about some of the longer term, like the 2 week and stuff like that, which we're just going to kind of skim through one at a time. We do have a bit of a 3 candle high here, but this is just a swing unless it was to close back below the upper first at 465. I'm not looking for a 460 strike at the basis, but if it does start to breach below that upper first, specifically taking out 465 and 464 at this close open, then I'd be looking for somewhere around 460, possibly even down to 455 to 450 area. As long as it's closing above 452 to 453, I'd still be biased towards running those upside areas. Nice consolidation in here wouldn't hurt. This is fresh expansion though, so mean reversion back to the upper first around 465 is to be expected and would still be bullish as long as it's closing candles above there, or even the basis as long as it was to recover that upper first. I'd be looking for continued expansion to the all-time high and higher. If we did see the lower first dropped, I would be looking to the lower second, somewhere around 445 to 450, possibly even a gap fill down there to 440. So still have to be aware of that, but SPY looks good as well. No issues with this right now, especially if it can close above that upper second standard deviation on the weekly. Again, it doesn't rule out that it doesn't, push up higher and then come back down next week. So just, be aware of that. But we are seeing fresh expansion on a lot of traditional market structures, even in individual stocks. So, that is something that I would look for first, is be biased towards that volatility expansion. And, of course, that does open up the door for downside volatility within that expansive structure. But I would just keep an eye on it. Looks pretty good so far. Bitcoin running this low nicely over here, this little spike low from yesterday at 41.5. We're looking at probably, to be quite honest, what's the 12-hour looking like on Bitcoin? Yeah, this is a nice compression on the 12-hour, as long as the lower second and this low is held. So that's kind of a zone. From the 12-hour here, we've got the lower second coming in at 41 to that 40,500. As long as that is held, which is down there by the lower third, I would favor just a consolidation and then just keep an eye on the local wick high here at 43,500 or so. It's 43,475 on spot here, but I'd give it some room to about 43,500 is where you would want to see like a 12-hour close. So that is the kind of setup that I'd be looking for here. Maybe a little bit of cool down. We see the 12-hour is angled up as well on closes above $41,000. Bitcoin currently trading at 42,100, so about $1,000 above there. Coming into a weekend, lower liquidity, so just watch out. There has been some bigger players stepping in over the weekends, so I would be careful. It's not a guarantee, though. It's a much lower liquidity environment over the weekend, so it is easier to move to the upside and downside. But, often coming into a lot of these weekends, we've seen those moves not really get rolling until either just before CME market open and or during CME market open on Sundays for me. So something to keep an eye on there. Let's go ahead and turn on the tunes again, and let me peruse the chats here. Let's go ahead and what do we got? We'll throw on this one. You'll have to let me know if the music is competing with my voice a little bit too much there. And let me go through the chats here. So, yeah, I see there is so for those that are new here or that are watching the public streams, there is private streams going on. They're nothing exclusive. I'm not doing anything else different with those streams. They're for people who cannot access YouTube and Twitch or any of the other streaming services because of restrictions. So that's why I have those chats open. There are also people that I often have worked with and or consulted who are taking FINRA exams. So we do have a few guys over there I know that are going to be, yeah, studying coming into the end of the year, because you do have FINRA certification exams, licensing exams coming into in the first quarter. For those of you guys that are just getting rolling with that, yeah, I will be basically your boot camp test guy. Yeah. Well, Jimmy's going to be your main instructor, on-site instructor, and then I'll help you guys as you get further along in that stuff, preparing for the licensing exams. Yeah. Yeah. You'll have to. You're going to be dealing a lot with the risk management officer. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and look at the public chats here. We still have some people hanging out in Twitch. I can see you guys chatting over there. If you're chatting over there, it's I can't actually import that into my streaming software, so it's tough for me to keep up with. If you want to move over to the YouTube live stream, that would actually be preferable. Okay, yeah, some of you can't log or aren't logged into YouTube. That's fine. But when you can, come on over, log into YouTube. You can sub the channel and chat and any of the live streams. I have it on subscriber mode only. Of course, it's free to subscribe, but it's because of bot invasions of like promo SM and like all this other crap that was coming into my live chat. Let's see, so we got a few other people that have joined the public stream and started to chat here. We've got Sam and we've got Mr. fucking Buy the Dip. Hi. Hi, guys. Said hi to the other guys here. We've got, can I check on what? Check on one. Sam. Sam is like Bobby. So when Bobby's here, he often is like, hey, just give me one. I'll take a look at it for you. And then he does like 3 or 4. Hey, I got one for you. And it's all good. Yeah, I mean, Bonk is going up. I don't know what else to tell you there, buddy. It's going to go up until it doesn't. Game Swift, Ocean, Bonk. We can check on it, but I'm not going to really have too much insight for you on Bonk, other than it's going up and to the right, and until it puts in a high structure, you know, there's not much more I could tell you there. Let's see. I don't know what Game Swift is, but we could check on it. This is a Uniswap token. I'm assuming this is the correct one. I don't know where I would be charting this other than Uniswap. I mean, it's up and to the right on the 12-hour and daily. I don't know if there's any longer charts. This is expansion on the daily, so it's looking, as long as it's above the upper first at, jeez. You always give me the ones that are like unreadable. So this would be wrapped ether. So I would say, you know, above whatever that number is, it's 2543 is what I would be saying that, you know, this is going to maintain its expansion to the upside. It's currently trading at 3526. Above the upper second at 2961. Looks good. Keep expanding. I would be careful. It is confirmed expansion. There's not much more I can tell you on this. It's too young. As long as it's above 2076111, you know, it's going to be up and to the right. Other than that, I can't tell you too much more about it. It doesn't have enough history, but so far so good on the daily. It's above its last swing high, which is the upper first, which is where you would want to see it. Maintain closures. You know, it'd be bad if it dropped 1707 or so, this last swing low. Then we're looking for probably a really big drawdown, probably a run to this wick low by the lower second at first, but that'd be a rug pull in this scenario on something like this, as it stands right now. Other than that, it's up and to the right. I don't really, it's tough. It's so new. I can't really tell you where would be the next big area, but it is daily expansion to the upside. So far so good. We can look at Ocean. We're gonna take, I think Ocean has a trading view chart which should grab all the history. It does. So Ocean looks really good on the daily. In fact, I know quite a bit about Ocean. This has already broken out and then consolidated above this weekly macro low, or it's a major low until we see it break out above this major low. So we have this major low down here that's coming in at like, you know, what was the low there at 11.5 cents or so. Now it's about putting in and confirming this major low, thus creating a macro low over here, so on the prior low. And this is coming in at 25 cents. So this is right up against its breakout region. If we do see closes above this wick high in a weekly, it's looking good to keep trudging along here. That's going to be 57 cents. It's currently trading right up against it and the upper second here. So closes above the upper second at 53 cents are going to probably initiate moves to retest this high and higher. Next big area, so we got a low reclaim, all of these lows reclaimed. I'd be looking 68 to 70 cents, 68 to 73 cents at these highs, as long as it can regain this this low right here at 58 cents and 70 cents. So yeah, so above there, I'd be looking 68 to 73 cents, and if it can reclaim that, we start moving it up. Yeah, there's quite a bit of resistance around the 70 cents region. There's a swing high around that 70 to 75 cent region, swing high over here, and a swing low. But above 58, we're looking over here to, you know, 68 to 73. Above there, you're probably looking at a shotgun to like the 80 to 90 cent region, possibly $1 very quickly. The weekly is still expanding, but it's got to break out. It's got to break out of this consolidation. Once it does that, I'd be looking at this as a macro low coming up, you know, once this major low is in. When you look at this on a monthly chart, you can see how this would relate to what I've talked about with Bitcoin and why the macro low is in. So you got your major low. You've got on a close, technically it's a macro low, but we need to see the wick high closed above to call this one a macro low, this major low complete, and then we're looking to the upside. This is very strong on the monthly. Next big target on the monthly is going to be that 73 cent region, where there's two highs coming in. Above there, it's going to very quickly hit $1 to $1.25, probably in short order. So I would, you know, just keep an eye on it. I think it's very bullish, above 41 cents on the monthly. In particular, if you're looking shorter term time frame, we're looking bullish above 44 or 45 cents. So 41 to 45, we start seeing that area drop. That's these lows down here. You know, would be the next big target, somewhere around the close. You know, at 38, it would be, what's that close down here? Looking 38 cents, yeah, like 38.5 to these wicks coming in at around 35 cents. Wouldn't want to see that area dropped, but that's only really going to become a danger below this last swing low at 44, and then this swing low at 41, which lines up with the monthly. So you see how this fits in? As long as it's above that monthly at 41, it's looking good up and to the right. Daily looks pretty good too, retesting the upper second, you know, breaking out of, you know, this swing, this prior swing, this lower swing high. If it can close up here, looks great. Especially if it can close above this last swing high, which is at 55.7 cents. Looks good. Y'all better hope Bonk doesn't rug, because this thing is, you know, it's still, you know, I know it's got more history than this, but it's a fresh expansion, re-expansion on the daily. You know, you can go higher term time frame, but it's not going to do anything. I can't tell you much on Bonk until I see a high put in. You know, other than above 1337 or elite, above there, it's looking good to keep going up. That was your closes right on the 1337. And as long as it's above the basis at 95, 95, 97. It's looking good. And the upper first at 16,301. It's looking good. To keep continuing up until we see a swing high put in and on good volume, which we're not gonna get volume from this chart, so we'll have to go look at an exchange. Let's see what coin. Yeah, no, it got its Coinbase listing, got its Coinbase bump. Where's Binance? Binance, is this not on? It's got to be on Binance, right? Nope. I guess we would just have to go to Bybit. Yeah, I mean, it's hitting higher volumes here on the daily, and it is critical. But above, 1337 or 13,370, it's looking fun. And then 96, 93. It's 96. 96.05 on the basis there, so as long as it's above the basis, it looks good. Hi, Baba. How you doing, bud? Long time no see. This is going to be the last one, Sam. But I will do this one for you. Fetch. We're probably going to have to do Binance on this one. Not going to do perpetual because it's just not worth it. Yeah, we looked at this one before. That's right. It did hold support at the 48 cent region. Expansion up. This is fresh expansion as well. There is a weekly here to be had. Yep. It looks very good on the weekly. It's going to likely run to $1 to the high here at it's the high there. So remember, we're log scale, so $1.03 is right at the swing highs over here, and then looking at like $1.20 above there. You're looking at likely fib extensions. I think this has longer history, but it's where we can, we'll just have to take the swings on the monthly, which is a reversal structure on the monthly, and we can maybe fib extend this guy. And yeah, we're looking literally the 1272 is coming in right at $1.18. So I'm looking at the above, probably looking at $1 pretty quickly next year, and then $1.20, $1.18, $1.20 above there, $1.50 to $1.70 at the 1414, 1618 all the way up there at 275 to $3. Over time, you want to take this move as it is right now. Again, you're getting $1.50 around the 1272 from the lows. Let's take the current one now. Again, 1272 coming in right across the highs here to the 1414. We're looking at 114 to 150. This looks like a good structure. Just has to break out locally. It's doing that on the monthly. It's doing that on the weekly with very good expansion as it stands right now. Nice support at the upper first. Continued Bollinger Band expansion. This is next big area. It's already above here. It's above this low. Yeah, you're looking at like $1 to $1.20, and then above there, $1.50, and then off to the races to some of those extension targets that I was talking about. Looks good. I'm sure on a longer, pre-listing history, it's probably, there's probably some overhead resistance above here, but as it stands right now, most traders are going to be looking at the Binance chart. So, but yeah, FET looks good. Looks like it's continuation. And of course, that is above 33 cents. It's still good. I mean, this thing pulled back to the upper first and just took off like a freaking rocket. So I would just keep an eye where the weekly closes. The daily is getting hot to trot, but it's also on re-expansion, and it's good above 57 cents. From the daily perspective, this is going to be, oops, this is going to be fine. The basis is above the breakout on a close. It's going to be fine above 57. Above 55 to 60 cents, it's fine. Below there, then I'd be looking for mean reversion back to upper 40-cent region to possibly 40 cents. But until then, sideways and up. Looks good. It's expanding. Deeper targets on the table. So, my bias would be, as long as Bitcoin's going sideways, alts are going to catch up, and unless Bitcoin dumps off, like in a really aggressive manner, I'm not looking for like tons of downside on alts until we see something like Bitcoin make a lower low, get more mean reversion, come back, find a base. Even then, we might see some alts continue to run, but that's probably where they would start to put in their highs. And or if it just continues to consolidate, you're likely to see alts continue to run. Then when Bitcoin makes its next move to the upside, we'll likely see alts either take a pause or dump off a little bit. Just, the nature of liquidity as it stands. So a little bit of liquidity rotation. Excuse me while I drink a little bit of water here. Yeah, so yes, thank you for bringing that back up. I did mention that I would look at bonds for you, didn't I? That was on, it was either Monday or Wednesday. My apologies, yeah. So you want 2 year, at 2 years bouncing. Got a nice bounce. To be fair, I mean, it wouldn't take much for this to at least mean revert to like 4.5, 4.6%. But it's a heavy downtrend. Look, I called this. I've been calling this for a very long time. Called this earlier this year. That even if we see we're impulsing up, but we're likely to see things top out around the 5.5, 5.25 to 5.5. It spiked off of 5.25 area. Now, the quarterly's the big one. Again, closed below 4.94%. This is pressure down. It could still run and hang around the highs and bounce around, but it's over. And you're hearing this come from the Fed. They're trying to do some. They're trying to salvage what Jerome said yesterday or the day before, or whatever. With like, well, we haven't made a decision on lowering rates, but their hands are tied. We got the 5 year, same deal on the quarterly. I mean, upper second. This is, it could still run to the 5 to 5.25 area. But it's almost done. This move is almost done. I mean, the quarterly is telling you everything you need to know. Below 4.6, and this thing's turning down. And it's not fully confirmed until, we see the end of the first quarter. But it's giving you the bias ahead of time. 10 year, same deal, 4.64. It did, to be fair, it did run the next high. We were looking shorter term targets. This was more for the breakout on the higher low on the quarterly from the upper first here. But, I mean, can it continue to run 4.73 over the next year? Possibly, yeah. But the fact of the matter is below 4.64, which is trading quite a bit below in terms of yield, does mean that it's going to be twisting pressure down. It's already nearly there. You go to the 20 year, you're not going to get as long a history, so you're not going to get a reading. On the 30 year, you will. Below 4.91. This is a big rejection, losing that upper second. It ran the areas that we talked about at 5 and 5.25. Did it get to 5.25? It came up shy of 5.25. You know, it was an adjustment. You know, we did make that adjustment from 22 to look for a little bit, you know, a little bit higher. Nice break higher, but right into overhead resistance. We're looking at the upper first being the next big target, 3.7 to 3.5 or so on the lows here. But I think these are going to start dropping like a rock over the next year. It might take a little while to get there. Like I said, it might be, you know, screw around, bounces into changing or transitioning structure on the longer term time frames, and then just down. Pressure down on the 3-month is going to be continuing with a confirmed cross coming into the end of the month, unless this somehow recovers to 4.91%, which is highly unlikely from here. It's not impossible, but it's highly unlikely. It is setting up for the daily to, you know, find a low at some point here pretty soon, maybe in and around 385 if it's going to get continuation. But on the 30-year, who the hell really wants to hold 30-year government notes right now, understanding what they're no one. That's why we have the inversion, right? That's why the long end, you know, started to catch up and then mean revert. Like, everybody was making a big deal about it's uninverting, the long end's catching up. Yeah, the long end has to catch up and maintain above the short end in order for you to really start making that bias that things are shifting. And we saw a rejection basically on the long end of the curve. It's back to short end being preferable, because who the hell wants the US government, you know, owing them money right now? Not a lot, but there is, you know, it's banks. It's short term on the banking side of things. So it, you know, the Fed isn't even confident. This tells you the Fed is not even confident. And they're going to be in a pickle, man. They're going to be in a pickle because they're going to have to. Reverse repo is where, you know, is what's propping up the bond market right now. And, you know, that's your institutional side of things is the big banking, the big banking industry, which is being supported by the Fed, pulling from reverse repo to support the bond market. That's what you're seeing. And they are not confident in the US government, as rightly so. And the US government shouldn't be confident in them, as you can see. And the American people shouldn't be confident in them. This is all a big mess. And, you know, where do you see things coming to in the next couple of years? You know, things are probably going to come to a head. Yeah. It's all about those quarterly. That's really where you want to be looking right now, especially coming into the final quarter of the year. Yep. Cool. So we got a good mix of a crew here. We got Jedi, No Name, Spin, Broca, Sam, FBTD, Baba's here. Cool. Good to see you all. I think that's probably going to do it for today, though. I mean, unless anybody has any pressing questions or comments that you'd like either answered or heard, let me know. Take another sip of my, I got coffee here and water, so we're going to take a sip of coffee here while I'm waiting for you guys to catch up. And coffee's gone. Yeah, I agree. So a lot is being made about this breakdown to, you know, the 41 and $40,000 low over there at 40,150 over here. So when you're looking at it, you know, you flip on volume and you can see bear candle volume retest that volume level, don't close below it, and then it, there was no close below it, so there was no continuation past this low. So 40,300 would be an early indicator. But when you look back here, we had the little breakout to go test 43.5 up here, so key levels of resistance. But on the big spike down, you saw it picked up immediately and spike back to that area consolidation, run it. I would be biased towards it testing further up into the $42.5 to $43,000 level over the next day or two, is provided it can get above 42,240, 42,250 or so, right around here. You've got quite a few swings here on the lower term time frames. We had a swing low, swing highs here, breakout, retest, and if you look back here, these candles from this higher volume area didn't pass this little consolidation breakout. So this kind of becomes your demand zone. If we do see this wick low dropped at around 41.5, 42.4, 41.4 rather, then I'd be looking for that move to $40,000, possibly the weekly at 39 again. But again, it's a weekend. I would just watch it pretty carefully, and I am biased to what the 12 hour is telling us. So 12 hour is pressure up above 41. So if we start seeing 41 drop, 12 hour return, all those other time frames are likely to be angled down as well. So 4 hours saying Mickey Mouse pattern, but that doesn't really mean much. It's just a consolidation. 43,000 would turn that back up in the next 4 hour close. So I'm not too bearish on it, but yeah, if we see the lows dropped, obviously at 40,150, I'm looking to the weekly monthly area, 39 to 38.5 at the monthly, possibly lower to 37.7 at the next weekly below. That's going to be the key area, right? 37.7, you could even just use 37.7 to 38.5 as the key area to the downside. If it gets front ran, it's probably going to happen at the weekly at 39, possibly higher than 39. Yeah, and then come back to it. Yeah, it's tough because it's liquidity just dies on the weekends, and it's whale playtime. So it's either they're helping to facilitate reaccumulation, and then we come back to it usually towards either just prior to CME on Sunday, or during CME or post CME open, that we really start to see price move. Whales would rather move with CME than move with some of the plebs. And this is really because CME has taken over the open interest in the market. So yeah, you can check on it. It's CoinGlass, and then you just click on open interest. You'll get the list. CME is taking the lead. That's what you want to see. It's professional traders taking the lead on price movement and liquidity. So, yep. Baba, I covered Bitcoin and my thoughts on that in detail, extensive detail at the beginning of the stream. That's not something that you can project. Like a 50% drawdown from a specific level like that, you can't really project. It's all hindsight analysis for much of that. I mean, if we start to see things start to fall apart in the local ranges, sure. I mean, a 20% drawdown from the highs, though, right now is even a 20% drawdown, I should say, because you had mentioned 50, but I think it's unwise to make any kind of predictions anyway like that. But a 20% drawdown is right to the daily lower second at 36.2 to 3 from the high, right? What does a 50% drawdown look like from the current highs? A 50% drawdown is all the way through every major support, right? So you're looking at back below, we're looking at back below the monthly, or right at the monthly at 23,000 at 23.3, right? Obviously spiking up around 45,000, 50% of that, right? So you're looking at around $22.5 to $23,000, from 46, you're looking at $23,000, which is a monthly level. That's not something that I'm willing to say is likely. It's just not the most likely thing to happen. And I covered and have been covering this quite often, but I will reiterate it because I don't know how much you've gotten to see the streams lately. But if we go over here and we look at the monthlies, we're likely seeing we are likely seeing a move very much like what we saw in 2016. This is likely what we're seeing is, close above the upper second, maybe even an additional close that runs the lower high of the bear market that kicked it off. Lower high, reached the lows here after, going sideways, get our final low, macro low, come up, and then we get, we got a retest on the lows to solidify macro low once this candle was in October of 2015, up sideways, got the compression on the monthly, close above the upper second, kicking off expansion, and then come down just to find support again at 438. Didn't even paint a 3 candle closing high, but it was a swing high to swing low, and then just marched up and sideways in the bull market. That's more likely what we are seeing than something like a rejection at the upper second, 2 rejections, lose the upper first, and then come down all the way and run the lows again. Bears already had their chance. A 50% drawdown on the monthly is very, very unlikely from here. It's not out of the question. But we're likely seeing a scenario very similar from volatility, from a volatility expansion standpoint, where the next big area to test is the lower high that set off the bear market. So lower high, we had then the close open structure here at 31.8. That was the candle close open that then, during this open at 31.8 dropped the lows and went all the way down to $17,500. So that was the big area. You look at the monthlies, once that was broken out, we got the higher low. That's a major low, thus solidifying this area over here as the macro low. Macro lows are in the most likely area to be retested on any kind of a big downside move then, like in 2016, would be the close open structure on the monthly, somewhere around $30,300 to $600, maybe $30,000. That'd be the most likely scenario as it stands right now, or maybe even just hang on to that upper first, which is, well above there, almost to the monthly lows over here at 35. So, but, there's, in addition to this being, a close open structure at 30,477 on the monthly, it's in between 2 weeklies at 30,300 and 30,600. So if you go look at the weeklies here, there's this weekly at 30,300, and then you've got this weekly high at 30,600. Now those are closing highs. So you've got a range between the closes to those wick highs there, at 30,800 to 31.8. So, there's the monthly breakout levels. You've got monthly supports there. You've got a swing high here on the monthly as well. At that 30,500, right between 30,400 and 500, right between those 2 weeklies. That's a swing high on the monthly. That's more likely going to be the area that would be tested rather than some kind of, 50% drawdown. Hope that makes sense. You'll have to let me know. But I'd be looking at this more. The volatility setup is definitely more akin to what we saw in 2016. Which, funny enough, was when I recovered my horrible decision making on my account. I've told you guys this before. I came in, got cocky. I already knew how to trade, and blew up an account in 15. And I made it all back, and then some. 15. I worked very hard on that bear market bottom. I actually did very well after that. doubled down, refocused, and then got back on the horse 2016, and actually did very well even on the first leg of 2016. And then I remember that mean reversion back to find support in 2016, and then subsequently right after that, freaking moon time, and made me a very happy camper, at least in Bitcoin. Yeah, I was in traditional markets then. Yes, I didn't. The traditional markets are a lot easier because you can hedge. You can hedge with options. There was no good options platforms with liquidity for Bitcoin at the time, and even now there's still not good options platforms with decent liquidity. Yeah, that's why I'm excited, man. I'm excited for options plays on spot ETF, because it's the real way to hedge is not to have one account that you're short on and one account that you're long on. It's options, man. That's how you hedge. Yep. So I'm excited, man. But yeah, no, I was in traditional markets and did very well during that time period. A lot of accumulation of big tech stocks. I got this one company around the beginning too, very beginning, called Tesla. It's done very well. Been through a lot of stock splits on that one too, and that's been beautiful every time. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I was a big, yeah. Oh, yeah. Jimmy knows. Yeah, I was a big Tesla bull. I was calling for it right from the very beginning. Yep. I mean, that was, they taking advantage of a lot of the tax credit situation surrounding the push behind EVs at the time too was really very, very bullish. Yeah, so it's free money. It's government money. It's government subsidized money, right? So you're subsidizing the cost of the vehicle because that money, they're still getting full price. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. I think that's going to do it. Now, next week, let me look here. So we've got Christmas coming up pretty quickly. Now, of course, that's going to be on, it's going to be the end of next week, but next week, yeah, I should be around Monday at minimum. And then Wednesday and Friday, I will keep you guys up to date on the stream on Monday. So around the same time, 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6:30 p.m. UTC. Around then, if it does change, yeah, I'll let you know via x.com, formerly Twitter, of course. If you don't follow me there, go ahead and look me up there. It's at CryptoLandy. And then for those of you that are watching here on stream, go ahead and hit the likes. That does help the channel. All the information I give here, including my indicators, are free. And everything will remain free. I don't do any paid stuff. Eventually we'll have something that's very high level, but only for people who are really dedicated. And it's going to be more of a probably focused on exams, on FINRA. Maybe if I go back and do the CMT stuff, maybe some CMTs. But yeah, all my information is free and will be freely available in perpetuity as it stands right now. So go ahead and join. Hit the likes. It does help out the channel. Enjoy helping you guys look at your charts, decipher what's going on in the markets, and hopefully you learn something. All right, with that being said, I do want to wish you all a wonderful afternoon and evening, no matter where you are in the world. I hope you have a good weekend. And we're going to go ahead and set the timer here. You can listen to the beats on the outro of the stream if you like. And we are going to wrap this up. Awesome. All right, so you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you're in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. With all that being said, have a great weekend again. Landy out.
Street gang, this is Almighty. Standing by, over.
The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
ID, over. CBR Street gang, this is Almighty. Standing by, over.
Binance, 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 with Binance, Binance, Binance's, Binance's, Binance, Binance. And with that, I'll turn the floor over to Deputy Attorney General Monaco.
Last but not least, I want to thank me. I want to thank me for believing in me. I want to thank me for doing all this hard work. I want to thank me for having no days off. I want to thank me for never quitting. I want to thank me for always being a giver and trying to give more than I receive. I want to thank me for trying to do more right than wrong. I want to thank me for just being me at all times. Snoop Dogg, you a bad...